Good morning, everyone. My name is Faisal Al-Shahi, Project Manager of Entrepreneurship at Dubai Chamber. I would like to welcome you all to the second webinar of Dubai Tech Tour, brought to you by Dubai Chamber and Dubai Startup Hub, and in partnership with Retail Summit and Maharata Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture. Before we start the session, let me run you through a couple of housekeeping rules to have a smooth session today. Please note that your mics has been put on mute at all times during the discussion. Please feel free to share any questions you might have at any time throughout the session using the Q&A box on Zoom. Today's webinar, under the title of B2B, e-commerce and D2C trends and transforming retail and technologies. Such an important topic, especially at the time after COVID-19, where online businesses have been growing significantly, and especially e-commerce. Without any further ado, let us dive into the agenda of today's session. We'll start shortly with an opening remark from Dubai Chamber, addressed by Samir Nawani, Chief Representative Officer of Dubai Chamber India Office. Followed by that, we have a short presentation by deVere Forster, CEO of Dubai CommerCity. And then we go straight to our panel discussion that will be moderated by Gary Thatcher, CEO and co-founder of the Retail Summit. And last but not least, we will end with a Q&A session. As shared earlier, please feel free to use the Q&A box anytime throughout the session to share your questions. And now I would like to pass over the mic to Samir, Chief Representative of Dubai Chamber India Office.
Thank you, Faisal. On behalf of the organizers, Dubai Chamber, Dubai Startup Hub, MCCIA, and the Retail Summit, allow me to extend a very warm welcome to all of you and wishing you a good time of the day. It was 1908 when Ford introduced the Model T, and Henry Ford said, you can have it in any color that you want as long as it's black. If you look at it 100 years ago, consumers had limited choice. Spreading awareness about brands and products was very difficult, challenging, and marketing as an arm of management was in its very nascent stage. Assuring that the products are available at the right place at the right time and the right product is available was a challenge. Fast forward 100 years, we see consumers are spoiled for choice. They are bombarded with hundreds, if not thousands, of ads in a day. And logistics has been so sophisticated that you can have the product where you want it and when you want it. That's not the only thing that has changed. If we just turn back a few decades ago, the legacy brands like P&G and Unilever, their products, it took months for them to gather consumer insights and meaningfully use it to slowly establish their brand and ensure that availability is there in the markets where they are focusing. If you look back just 5 years ago, it has transformed. Data is available with brands and platforms in such a way that consumer insights can be leveraged in near real-time basis. If you look at mobile data traffic, a report by Ericsson says that India consumed 14.6 GB of data per smartphone per month. And the numbers for GCC stand at 18.4 gigabytes in 2020. This is changing very fast. With the introduction of 5G and the increase in the demand of data, we see that the demand for data in India is expected to be at 40 GB per month by 2026, and in the GCC it is expected to be at 42 GB per smartphone per month. And this is not the only change that we are speaking about right now. We are also speaking about experiments with the drone-based delivery systems, the Hyperloop, the autonomous vehicles. These are expected to bring in more changes in the logistics and the way people and goods are moving from one place to the other, and that is expected to transform retail even further. If you look at India and Dubai, the retail sector has been extremely vibrant, especially in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And the digitization that has happened in the space has been immense. People have been using platforms, channels to place order, different platforms and different channels to place orders for different products that they need at different point in time. The convenience and the ease has increased. And when we speak of Dubai Chamber as an entity, we have international offices spread across 10 countries globally, right from Latin America, where we have offices in Panama, Brazil, and Argentina, to Africa, where we have offices in Mozambique, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Kenya, to CIS region, where we have an office in Azerbaijan, to India and China. The offices are highly engaged with businesses locally on ground, trying to understand where the opportunity areas are for Dubai-based businesses to come in and expand their horizons beyond Dubai. And not only that, also speaking about opportunities that Dubai has to offer in our local markets. So all in all, to summarize, I would say that technology is changing drastically in retail, and data availability has increased, which is bringing in a lot of consumer insights for brands, platforms, to ensure that they are able to cater to consumer demands in near real-time basis and are very agile with their operations of business. As well as when we speak about India and Dubai, the opportunities in terms of retail, be it technology for retail, be it retail products, or be it logistics support for retail, are immense. And that is where the chamber will be delighted to support all the participants and attendees today, and the business communities both in India and Dubai, to explore these opportunities. And Dubai Tech Tour is one such initiative that we are working on currently to support retail tech startups and scale-ups from India to explore Dubai as a market for their next operations. And this is where I would encourage you or your network, which has retail tech startups, to apply for the retail Dubai Tech to Retail Tech and be a part of the virtual delegation that will follow. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful session and enjoy the discussion.
Thank you, Samir, for sharing those insights. And before we move into our next presentation on the agenda, would like to run a quick poll with our audience to get to know where our audience is connecting from today. You will be able to see the poll in front of you now. If you can fill in with the right answer, we'll give 1 minute. Thank you everyone for participating. And now moving to our next speaker for today, and would like to pass on the mic to deVere, Chief Operating Officer of Dubai CommerCity. The mic is yours.
Faisal, many thanks. Good morning, everyone. And first of all, I'd like to thank Dubai Chambers of Commerce and the team there for giving me the opportunity to speaking to the audience that is logged into this webinar this morning. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Dubai CommerCity. Dubai CommerCity is the first free zone in the region dedicated to e-commerce, and I will be talking about Dubai CommerCity a little bit later on in my presentation. But I wanted to first of all start off with giving just an overview of the e-commerce landscape in the MEASA region, that's Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. So on the first slide, if I can ask someone to move on. Thank you. On the left-hand side are the stats of the general retail e-commerce business worldwide in 2019, which are probably the most accurate figures that we have to date. You can see that the overall market came in at just over $3.5 trillion US, and that's expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of around 17% per year over the next 3 years to reach just short of $6 trillion US. Now, if you look at specifically the e-commerce market in our region, it's only a tiny little percentage, around 2.5%. So sales of $89 billion US, but it is expected to grow higher at a higher rate than the global rate of 16.6%, coming in at 18.4% over the next 3 years, meaning that sales will come in at just short of $150 billion US by 2022. Now, when you get into the detail, South Asia represents the largest of the sub-regional e-commerce markets within the EMEA region, accounting for about 50% of overall sales, just over $45 billion US. But it's the GCC that will show the fastest growth within the sub-regional e-commerce market. And there are two areas, two countries within the GCC that will show very, very strong growth. That's Saudi Arabia at 39%. And UAE at 38% over the next 3 years. Now, the MEASA region, the potential within the MEASA region is very, very high, and it's confirmed by the fact that 12 of the regional's countries are growing faster than the average of the 16.6% that I talked about globally through 2019 through to 2022. Now, on the next slide is specifically targeting the e-commerce market within the UAE region. The UAE retail market in terms of e-commerce was worth $3.9 billion US in 2020. That was up 53% year on year, and it was driven primarily by COVID-19 and what that has done in terms of the shift of purchasing online. And I'll be specifically talking about the pandemic shortly. Now, the market is expected to grow significantly over the next 5 years and projected to reach $8 billion US by 2025. And that is really down to post-pandemic consumer behavior, where the short term, medium term, and long term is all going to be around moving the transition of people moving from buying offline to buying online. And this is also supported by the fact that the UAE consumer is among the most connected and digital savvy in the world. You know, we have internet penetration levels and smartphone penetration levels close to 100%. And this is one of the highest areas of the world, specifically here within the UAE market. Now, moving on, what have been the key growth drivers and what are the opportunities, specifically when we look at the GCC and the UAE market? Well, you know, we're never going to not talk about COVID-19 as one of the key growth drivers. You know, this has all been down to a real push to consumers having to purchase online because stores have been closed. And I'm talking here globally. Second area is the growing internet and smartphone penetration, which I talked about. Third area is around there's been a significant reduction of barriers to purchase online. That's, for instance, new payment options with digital wallets, with being able to pay by monthly payments, click and collect, and an ease of returns, getting the product back to the seller. And also much more free delivery being offered by various e-commerce stores. Fourth area has been improvement in terms of both logistics and last mile, where we have seen warehouse automation coming along, which allows for faster and more accurate picking of online orders. And then, of course, courier companies launching same day and next day delivery to the consumer. Fifth area is around improved technology, where we've seen mobile apps and websites becoming a lot smarter and easier to shop from. And then finally, and this is very, very evident in the GCC region, the choice of online stores continues to double near enough every year. So customers have finally choice rather than being limited to only a handful of online stores. Now, the key opportunities within the GCC region, I would say, is online shopping is still very, very much in its infancy. And, we can see that with the total online as a percentage of retail is still only a single digit share of business. This means that there's a huge e-commerce opportunity within the region. Secondly, cross-border is already very, very popular. Within the GCC, cross-border as a percentage of total e-commerce accounts for around 70% of total orders. Now, when you compare that against the global average, that's around 50%. So consumers are very, very reliant still today on cross-border, which is great news for businesses outside of the GCC because customers are willing to buy product from outside of the region. Then another opportunity is the introduction of digital payments. Cash on delivery has been hugely, hugely important right up until still today, where it accounts for 35, 40, even 50% of overall orders of an online store. Part of that's around cultural, in the fact that consumers want to actually have the product in their hand before they pay for it. But the other option, the other side to this is that there simply hasn't been any other payment option outside of credit cards and debit cards. So digital payments in terms of payment by installment and wallet payments through apps are hugely, it's a huge opportunity for companies to launch that within the region. And then specifically when you look at the UAE, I think the UAE is ranked 13th out of 99 countries for the ease of setup, and the government have made huge positive steps to allow companies set up within the region an online business. And this is where obviously Dubai CommerCity comes in and supports. The UAE is a very affluent and young population, and those consumers are ones that have money to spend and are looking for specifically fashion and cosmetics to purchase online. A third area is the UAE has a very high percentage of expats that are used to shopping online. And then fourthly, the UAE has very well established marketplace platforms to launch your brand or launch your products through those marketplaces. And I specifically call out Amazon, which obviously acquired Souk a number of years ago, Noon, and Namshi being a fashion specific marketplace. So if we look now at the impact of the pandemic to e-commerce, it's certainly accelerated the needs for retailers and brands that don't already have e-commerce capabilities to launch and build an online platform, or for them to refocus and reprioritize what they are doing in the e-commerce space. That forced customers to adopt online shopping for the very first time. We've seen a huge growth in terms of groceries, cosmetics, and fashion, because again, customers haven't been able to buy this with the stores being closed. And if you look at it, e-commerce sales are now predicted to be 20% of total retail sales by 2022. And whenever you look specifically at 3 countries, I'll pull these out because they may surprise you. In China, over 50% of retail e-commerce is now done through e-commerce, now done through digital platforms. In South Korea, it's nearly a third, and likely in the UK and also in the UK, it's approaching a third of overall commerce is done through e-commerce. We've also witnessed an explosion in online food delivery services. That's pick up from a retail supermarket or a restaurant and delivered direct to the customer. And we've also seen that the operational aspects of an e-commerce business has kind of reached breaking points due to the sudden and sustained growth rate of orders. Simply put, many have been caught out, not being able to gear up their operations to what is now the new norm. And finally, customers now expect the same instant gratification as offline shopping. So they expect same day, next day delivery, free returns and extended returns policies to allow customers to have it at home, try it on and return it rather than simply 7 days, 14 days. Now moving on to how B2B e-commerce is changing the business model for brands and retailers. I pulled out, in this case here, 4 areas. One's around convenience. Buying from a website has become much more convenient than buying from a sales representative. It's going to be around more customers because future buyers not only prefer to shop online, but they will demand it. E-commerce within the B2B sector has improved scalability because it's a lot easier to grow and scale through technology than investing in more sales representatives. And finally, it improves efficiency and productivity as customers can order online at their convenience. Businesses can now focus on the actual customer service functions that an online business can provide rather than those sales representatives talking to customers. And then whenever we look into how D2C is changing the business model for brands and retailers, I pulled out 3 areas. Better user experience and UI. So brands now can remove their over-reliance on retailers by building their own brand.com, recruiting the customers through this channel that they can control, and they have complete creative freedom to showcase their offerings. Within data has become the new currency. Customers can receive tailored and personalized experience to better drive engagements. And then finally, there are a lot more touch points, be that through social commerce, through instant messaging, and through Facebook Live. So moving on, I want to just give you a few slides in terms of Dubai CommerCity. For those that are outside of the region, Dubai CommerCity is located within the heart of Dubai. You can see on the right-hand side, it's within the Ramul area, which is right next door to the leading airport in the region, Dubai International Airport. So to give you an overview of what it looks like, this is the scale of the operation. It's an investment of just short of $1 billion US. It's over an area of around 2.1 million square feet. We launched the logistics cluster in Q1 of this year, and we launched the business office cluster in Q2. It's made up of 12, if you can just go back. The office cluster is made up of 12 buildings of G+6. We have 20 dedicated warehouse units of 368 square meters in size, 4 larger warehouse units of between 4,000 and 22,000 square meters in size, and 1 multi-client warehouse that's operated by Hemlin Worldwide Logistics. And then in the middle area, you can see which is our social cluster, which is made up of food halls, restaurants, a convenience store, and a multi-purpose events hall for clients to showcase their products. Next slide. So what our value proposition is, I touched on today that Dubai CommerCity is the first and leading free zone dedicated to e-commerce. It's strategically located next to Dubai International Airport, providing express order fulfillment to customers in the UAE and cross-border into the rest of the GCC. Now, what makes Dubai CommerCity different is we're more than just the free zone. So we provide full end-to-end e-commerce services and solutions tailored around our clients. So in addition to offices and warehousing, we provide this full turnkey e-commerce in a box, which I will come on to just shortly. We're also developing the first free zone that are led by e-commerce experts with over 10 years of experience on an international level, which will provide an unrivaled service that you'll find nowhere else. And finally, it's a trendy workplace and the region's leading innovation hub in both e-commerce and omni-channel. So when I touched on the e-commerce ecosystem, this is what makes Dubai CommerCity very, very different. Essentially, what I talk about an ecosystem is a network of unified functions completing a full cycle of services required by e-commerce firms. In this case, Dubai CommerCity offers end-to-end e-commerce services that go beyond the tenant-landlord relationship, which is typical of a free zone, including such services as e-commerce operational support, online store setup and web store management, customs consulting, warehouse logistics and last mile, and developing performance marketing and localization strategies. So essentially our positioning is outsource your e-commerce needs to Dubai CommerCity, your full service e-commerce partner. And then my final slide in terms of Dubai CommerCity is what this e-commerce ecosystem looks like. So you can see we start off with the business setup and custom support, where we help to support to get brands and retailers outside the region and within region to get their e-commerce business set up and their various different licenses and visas, through to supporting brands, retailers, and businesses in terms of their e-commerce strategy. Moving into, we'll assist and build online stores, and not only build it, but actually run online stores on behalf of our clients if they do not have the expertise within their organizations to do that. Moving into warehouse and last mile delivery, where we can offer multi-client warehousing on a pay-as-you-go basis for clients that don't have expertise in running their own warehouse operations, to simply work with Hellman Worldwide Logistics in their multi-client warehouse. And of course, then we do have our own dedicated warehouses from 368 square meters in size for brands to use and operate themselves. We then provide all the relevant support to drive fingerfall or footfall to an online store through digital marketing, performance marketing, and CRM to their customer base. Then finally, all the relevant support services that are required to run an online business, be that through contact center, customer support, translation services, photo studios, etc., etc. So you can see with Dubai CommerCity, we offer this full turnkey solution to any client, be it either on an a la carte basis or full suite of services. So I want to finish with one last thing. India is the UAE's second largest trading partner. There are over 3 billion consumers that live within a 3-hour flight radius of Dubai International Airport. And we all know that e-commerce is well developed in countries, including India, and that's becoming increasingly saturated. So this is where the GCC is of great interest, particularly to businesses based in India, because the GCC is projected to have the largest percentage growth in the e-commerce industry over the coming 5 years and beyond. And the UAE specifically is driving a significant portion of this growth. Thank you very much. And this is my contact details. I hope you find this interesting, both in terms of the landscape, what's driving e-commerce, and the opportunities for you in terms of e-commerce within the UAE and the rest of the GCC. You can reach me on email at deVere.Forster@Dubai CommerCity, or simply send me a WhatsApp on the number that you see on screen. I'll be delighted to talk to you and support you in any of your e-commerce needs for this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, deVere, for sharing those insights. And now, without any further ado, let us dive straight into the panel session. And it's great to see that already some questions are coming in. Please keep them coming through as we have our speakers in the panel session kickstart, and we'll have the last couple of minutes to address all those questions. So let me hand over the mic to Gary Thatcher, CEO and co-founder of Retail Summit, to moderate the session. The mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Faisal. Welcome everybody for tuning in today. Just to reiterate what Faisal said, please, we've seen some questions that are already coming in. We had some a couple of days back as well, so we will be putting this towards the panelists. We would much rather answer your questions than the questions that I've prepared or that we've discussed. This is about you. Also, please connect with us on LinkedIn. More than happy to grow our network, so please do find us and connect as well. In order to start off, I think it would be great just to have a minute with each of our panelists just to introduce their businesses, just in case you're not familiar. So first of all, we'll start off with Surabhi. Welcome to today's panel discussion. Please do give us an intro and overview of your company.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Surabhi, and I'm the co-founder of a health food brand called Happy Jars. We're based in India. We've been around for about 4 years now, and we do a range of nut butters. So it's peanut, almond, and cashew butters, as well as some healthy dessert bites. The brand is catering to health and fitness conscious audience. And the intention for us, of course, is not just to scale pan-India, which is the current focus for us, but also to be able to take the brand internationally.
Great, thank you. Hussein, over to you, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Hussein Wahbi. I'm the CEO of Fetcher. As you know, Fetcher is a tech-enabled logistics player out of Dubai. It was set up in 2012. Today, it's back strongly to the market because, as you know, we are in a transformation mode and in a turnaround mode. We're back very strong in the region. to really redefine the way the end-to-end logistics for B2C businesses is being done. We rely a lot on our tech, very advanced technology we have that enables a very seamless last mile and end-to-end process for most types of businesses.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Kapil.
Thanks, Harry. Hello, everyone. My name is Kapil Makhija. I'm the CEO of Unicommerce. Unicommerce is the largest e-commerce focused supply chain SaaS solution, having solutions like warehouse management, order management, etc. We have worked with 15,000 plus businesses, handling 6,000 plus warehouses and 1,500 plus stores, and are already catering to 20% of India's e-commerce volumes, about $4 billion of GMV. Happy to be a part of the session today.
Fantastic. So we're going to jump straight into the questions. As I said, we'll get through these questions as soon as possible, giving robust answers, and then we'll have some time at the end for the audience Q&A. So to start off, let's start with Surabhi, if I may. So we've seen that the combination of technology and COVID has completely changed the B2B and B2C landscape and accelerated digital disruption like never before. Can you talk through a couple of changes and trends that you've seen in your position as a business owner?
So the last, I would say now almost 2 years has been, like you said, I think everything that we knew about businesses and growing businesses has been turned upside down. Earlier, it was about, the faster you can get into retail, that's how you show your might of being a brand. But in just the last 1.5 years, we've seen that to be a large brand, you have to have a large digital play. Not only are we seeing a lot of smaller brands now taking to that platform, but even the largest MNCs are now starting to launch verticals that are fully D2C enabled, are trying to sell multiplicities of their brands on, let's say, one website. So I think digital is something that has not only been changed from a brand side, most importantly, it's actually coming as a consumer pull. So I think 96% of Indians are going to continue to live with this new behavior of shopping online. And I believe online grocery is growing 57% year on year. It's huge. I mean, the numbers are just tremendous. As a brand in the grocery space, we've seen that firsthand. So when we started off in 2019, just before the pandemic had hit, our online sales were less than 30%, were less than 30% of the overall numbers that we did, and retail was 70%. Luckily for us, we had some amount of performance marketing ongoing. So when the pandemic hit, we saw a large part of our sales shift overnight into online, and that has just grown. Not only has more sales shifted from retail to online, but the online sale has more than doubled over the time. So consumers are more open to trying out new foods. For us as a category, luckily, we were affected positively because food and everything that comes with it was one of the only open areas for business, both in terms of supply and increasing demand. And as a health food brand, we saw that there was a lot more demand for healthy ingredients, for people becoming more conscious of not having things like oils and sugars, and boosting immunity, for example, has become really big for us as well. I think without the tech, it would have been near impossible. In fact, the beginning of the pandemic, e-commerce firms had to, because of the fact that the demand went up literally overnight, had to be very careful and rationalize the kind of brands that they allowed to push. And we had to work really hard with our partners to say that, please don't exclude us from that list of brands that gets delivered, because a lot of the large e-commerce players had to delist a lot of the SKUs, obviously, to be able to manage deliveries, etc. I don't think that behavior is going anywhere, though. I think retail is going to come back. There's no doubt. So our sights on retail have not changed. I think they've just been delayed until such time that we see consumers confidently coming back to stores in and around us. But until that time, e-commerce has defied all expectations from what we would have thought maybe even a year and a half ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all around what the consumer needs and what the consumer demands, right? You have to act quickly, otherwise you're going to lose out on their loyalty, perhaps. And we've seen over the past year that almost 50% of consumers have openly admitted to switching brands and switching loyalty if you can't cater for their needs. So obviously something that brands and retailers are aware of. So thank you for that. Hussein, I'd like to come over. Yes, Kapil, you want to jump in?
Sorry, I just wanted to add on
this.
Please,
please do. This is exactly what we're here for.
Great, thanks. So along with the trends that Surabhi mentioned, I think two key trends that we have seen happen in the Indian landscape. One is emergence of D2C brands. A lot of D2C brands, particularly in new sectors like FMCG and personal care, which we had never would have thought with pre-pandemic. They have launched, and today we've got 800 plus D2C brands which are funded, and thousands many which are in the works today, which wasn't the case 2 years ago. Second thing is we are seeing demand coming in from the smaller towns in India, which from online through social commerce and other such initiatives, which wasn't the case before. In fact, they are growing almost 3 times as we've seen the demand from tier 1 towns. I think those 2 key trends have are shaping up well in the e-commerce ecosystem post the pandemic.
Thank you, thank you. So Hussein, like Kapil, you guys deal with thousands of brands, thousands of e-commerce providers, retailers across the board. So you have a very broad perspective of feedback from your clients, right? So I'd love to find out, you know, there's a huge amount of pressure on these brands to keep up with the consumer demands, as Surabhi kindly said in the opening remarks there. So what feedback have you received from your customers, you know, with regards to that pressure on the supply chain? So that's the first part. And secondly, how have you guys had to adapt your business in order to help them?
Yeah. So,
well, Gary,
like I said,
sorry.
Please go
Kabir, Kabir or me?
No, for Hussein, please.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, the good thing, Gary, here is COVID-19 have really changed the whole landscape of delivery in last mile. And all the rules of the game have changed completely, because it changed even the consumer or the customer expectations when it comes to delivery times. There's a good part and a bad part of it. During COVID-19, especially in the UAE, delivery times have gone up from 48 hours into 15 to 20 days, which was a horrible thing for almost everybody, because naturally the courier companies were not really prepared for the spikes in the volumes, and the capacities were really full to the neck. However, I think this reshaped the way we run our operations as delivery companies. Fetcher in specific, at that time, we didn't have that much volumes because the company was in a different situation, which I think it was a blessing, because it allowed us to take capacities within whatever we can deliver. And we tested at that time the consumer feedback or the customer feedback, while we were able to deliver in 2 days, but others were delivering in 20 days, which gave us an indication that for non-food products and non-grocery, believe it or not, same-day delivery is still not a main condition to really give you an advantage ahead of others as a merchant or as a retailer. A client today still accepts 24 hours delivery. They're very fine with this. Or you can complement this, and we noticed that the omni-channel requirement is very much as well famous now, and consumers want that. They want to go and collect from a locker, like what Moon is doing, for example. They want to go and collect from a store. They want the click and collect option, and they will tell you, just make sure the product is there. On my way home, I will collect it. Don't bother with the delivery. I want it a bit urgent. We haven't seen from clients conditions that if you don't give us a same-day delivery, we will lose the business. No, it's always an advantage or maybe a premium service that they offer to their clients. However, some of them are making the same-day delivery as a standard. I personally believe this shouldn't be the trend, because this will increase a lot their operating costs. It's always good to have the same-day delivery as maybe an option, and the customer sometimes is ready to pay more to get the parcel on the same day. This is a very, very practical thing that we have seen recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And just speaking to retailers and brands across the board, we know that obviously delivery and returns has always been important to them, and it will continue to be so. But there are other things now that they're becoming more important, you know, especially when people are spending so much time on their mobile device, right, or online in general. So it's clear product descriptions, images need to have more clarity. The navigation of the website or the mobile channel needs to be easy to navigate. Kapil, so I think you might have wanted to add to that, but do you have any thoughts on what you've seen with your clients as well based on that?
Yes, so I fully agree with you saying that delivery is one thing that consumers are becoming impatient. Even deVere had talked about it, that consumers are demanding next day delivery, and that has obviously put a strain on the supply chain. More importantly, the retail brands, as I mentioned, D2C was a trend that had emerged. A lot of these offline brands were not prepared to handle D2C, and that also put additional strain on them, on how to handle these consumers. They were never connected to the consumer directly. While they saw the benefit that they could collect the data, but they had to invest in technology which was suited on e-commerce. Their legacy systems were not prepared to handle that. And that's where somebody like us and many other players like us are actually playing the part in getting them ready. So the likes of ITC, Imami, Marico, these are large FMCG brands, had not done direct to consumer before, but are now post-pandemic are doing that. I think the second trend we are seeing is because of this pressure on delivery times and providing wider selection to the consumers is going omni-channel. A lot of fashion brands are talking about doing dispatches from the stores. So pre-pandemic, there was some talks about omni-channel, and we were the ones actually asking brands to try out omni-channel. And post-pandemic, the trend has reversed. Some brands are telling us that we want to go omni-channel. How do we enable that? So we are seeing a lot of brands actually using their hundreds of stores as dispatch points, as the footfalls are limited in offline stores. So we also refer to that. And there also a lot of enablement is required. The store staff doesn't understand the online world. So all of those nuances the brands had to take care of. And thankfully, in the Indian context, even the marketplaces have become omni-channel. So they do not have to move away from marketplaces to do D2C and to become omni-channel. They can do marketplaces and website combined. So I think those are a few things that we have observed from our journey.
Absolutely. And we've seen brands adapting B2C or B2B commerce models. How have they changed to align with consumer needs? You know, we've seen that, as you mentioned, and this is for Surabhi, if I may, we've seen some organizations step away from using marketplaces to selling direct to the consumer. And there's many benefits Kapil has touched on there of doing so. Mainly connecting with your customer directly firsthand. So you know, marketing preferences and data is still the currency that we would like to talk about. So have you seen a common theme as well, and what are your thoughts on it?
So I think for us, honestly, it wasn't really a choice between marketplaces and D2C. As a young brand, I think direct-to-consumer is something that you have to do. And in fact, we were perhaps one of the few brands when we started, and we started pre-pandemic, we were not looking at being a D2C brand. We knew the power of retail. I think because we've both founders have worked in MNCs, and we've seen how consumers behave, especially in the grocery category. And grocery is 0.8% of online in India before pandemic. So we knew the power of what retail would do. But I think as behavior has shifted, marketplaces are the closest replication of a retail store, where you have multi-brand, you have a basket that consists of not just one brand of products, but across everything. So for us, it's been very important to be present on both. I think, having said that, though, I wouldn't rely entirely on marketplaces because, like you said, access to data is very little. I think you need to understand how your consumers behaving online. For example, for us, a lot of our SKU level choices are made based on how consumers are buying. So it could be combos or pack sizes. And for a company as small as us, that's very, very valid learning. But for a larger company, that's, I think, even more valuable to have. You know, so like Kapil mentioned, if you're going to go omni-channel, you need to understand what's selling where. I think online marketplaces have also made it pretty easy to enter. So to just add another challenge that's come out of this, it's not all rosy and happy, because I think brand discovery online is so hard. It's very easy. In fact, someone was mentioning this to me the other day, and it stuck. It's very easy to sell now, but it's extremely challenging to build a brand on the online space. It's near impossible to fight for that eyeball, which is actually far easier to do in retail. If you're present in your category on shelf and you've done a good job of the branding, you will get recognized. But online, it's and with the number of D2C brands that are emerging in the space, it's getting harder and harder. But I do think it's important to be present on both. D2C is, some of them, I think some of the larger companies were a little late to the game, and small players like us really benefited from that. You know, we were on it from day one. Business kind of just shifted and we took off. But it's a very, very important channel to have.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the other side to the coin, isn't it? It's, yes, you have a global consumer base which you can sell to or market to, but it also increases the amount of people doing the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
And Hussein, obviously based on your huge amount of customers that you work with, have you seen also some feedback, some common themes from them where they're adding their sales channels to what they might have traditionally done? So we know that social selling, and this is a question that's come up from one of the audience members just not too long ago. Have you seen your customers even having to add more channels to cater for where consumers are spending more of their time, i.e., Instagram, TikTok, etc.? Hussein, you're on mute.
Yes, indeed, Gary. We've seen new channels coming into the picture, like TikTok or Snapchat, and those, because the audience there is completely different. It's not you cannot sell consumer products on LinkedIn, for example. It's more of an Instagram style, Snapchat, TikTok, those, and the volumes are huge. By the way, a big customer base of Fetcher is SMEs, the small businesses, the home businesses, and they sell like hot potatoes on Instagram. Believe it or not, the volumes are crazy. I'm sure maybe Surabi understands this very well. This is really very interesting and very exciting. I think the social commerce today, or the social marketing, is extremely important. And this is the future of the next wave of e-trading, I think. But let me tell you here, what is the secret? The secret with the delivery companies is a proper integration. Technology should be very strong for scheduling pickups, for returns as well. I don't think even 7 days is a logical day for return anymore. A return should be triggered immediately within either the same day or the next day, because it will allow the merchant to resell the product rather than sitting in their inventory and spending more on marketing to resell it again. So this is what we've been seeing recently from our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kapil, just to touch on this, to back up Hussein's point, we know that consumers don't want to have to leave their preferred channel in order to check out, right? And this is something that we talked about, live social selling within the app. Is this something that's increased in importance for the brands that you work with, or in India is it still it's a nice to have instead of a necessity?
No, social commerce is actually picking up in a big way thanks to channels like WhatsApp, Instagram, and as Hussein rightly mentioned, there are many small businesses who are actually, for them, it's actually become meaningful, and we are seeing that in the Middle East as well, based on our presence there. So in fact, a lot of large brands are also considering now them as good engagement channels to be able to understand the consumer voice, and are trying to build a presence there as well. But definitely for tier 2, access to the tier 2, tier 3 towns in India, I think social commerce has played a big role, and we are fairly bullish on it actually becoming fairly large in the coming years.
Okay, Kapil, want to stick with you to? Oh yes, Hussein, go for it.
I just need to add something before I forget. There is a big weakness today in e-commerce, and everybody will understand what I'm saying. The stock accuracy online is horrible. If I want to buy today any product and I go on Google and Google that, I will never have a proper accuracy where I can find that product and I can buy it now, even if I want to go and pick it up personally, because many people, believe it or not, they use their mobile not to buy. They use their mobile to search for a product, and if they find it, they will jump into the car, go to the mall, and take it immediately. There is a very big weakness here in stock accuracy, and I believe this is allowing more loss of sales, because clients will go into the big players, the international websites, and buy from there rather than sourcing from local players who may have the stock, but the stock is not visible.
Hussein, why is that? Is it a lack of investment in technology from the brand's point?
100%. Still living in the traditional way of doing business. I think this should really need to change in this region.
So obviously it's important to one, work with the right partner, but two, to invest the right amount in.
Yeah, maybe, by the way, maybe social channels, Instagram and these channels can compete with Google in allowing you. If I go and search for a pink iPhone now on Instagram, it will tell me every single merchant, for example, in the UAE who have available pieces. Why not? This is a major investment that they can do.
Yeah, understood. Surabi, Kapil, is there anything you wanted to add to Hussein's point there, or move on to the next question?
I think we have seen in the last 2 years the smaller brands actually struggling in the social commerce, like they're trying to get their act together. But I think it's been a positive movement, both on the smaller businesses wanting to invest in technology, getting more comfortable. We are seeing new age entrepreneurs like Surabhi herself getting into it and actually realizing the power of technology. And similarly, social commerce platforms, I think all of it has happened too sudden for everyone, right? So they are also trying to get their act together. We are seeing a positive shift across both demand and supply. And like I said, we are very hopeful that this trend is here to stay for sure.
No, understood.
We just
Surabhi, yes, go for it.
In terms of some smaller brands, it is actually about the platforms controlling the shops in India. So, for example, Instagram Shop and and WhatsApp aren't available to all unless they've been approved at the back end. We're kind of stuck in this loop at our end as well. So we don't have any of these shops yet. If anyone can help us, please contact me.
There we go. LinkedIn, connect with Surabhi, please, if you can help. Moving on to our next question, looking at the traditional distributor relationship network and how it's evolved as technology has changed the B2B and B2C landscape. Somebody's asked now how has that affected, and this is for each of you because they've asked about from a brand's point of view as you kind of present the brand online and offline. So how is that relationship amalgamated? So if that's for you, Surabhi, and then they've also asked from a tech point of view, Kapil, and then lastly from a logistics and supply chain, Hussein. So Surabhi, if I may.
Sure. So from a brand point of view, I think retail and distribution has always been extremely important. We've seen over the last 6 months, there's been a bit of a distance, I think, between distributors and brands, because distributors have obviously got longer cash cycles in the sense that their cash is stuck in the market a lot more as well. And now with the larger brands going online, I think some of them are a little bit antsy in the sense, they're not as much in business as they were earlier. They are not as open to new brands coming in. So for us, that's actually been a negative. We've struggled over the last couple of months to grow the retail footprint. We've paused it for now because it doesn't make sense for them, and we're just we're getting into loops of conversations. The other side of it that we've seen though is that retailers are actually trying to take their stores onto marketplaces. So I know of at least 3 stores that have now started store level websites and become sellers on Amazon because they want to be able to sell that product through an online channel. And retailers who've had their own apps, some of the larger retailers that are based in Delhi who we partner with, their apps are actually driving a large part of their business. So I think in terms of omni-channel, there's a huge demand. And I think India, hats off the kind of models that we come up with. For example, Dunzo is a local delivery app. They actually have guys that are stationed in stores because Dunzo needs to do local deliveries. The stores got stuff to send out. So there's just this, I think we've seen this magical mix of technologies and companies coming together to help brands to reach that last mile customer.
Yeah, and absolutely the offline point as well. I know, we're talking a lot about online and digitalization of brands and e-commerce, etc. But, I know, Kapil, your thoughts offline is just as important, an omni-channel approach. And we're also going to see physical stores are more than just merchandise, more than just stacking the shelves high and people coming in and transacting. They're going to become little hubs, logistic hubs, advertising, promotions, etc. Kapil, from your point of view as an enabler?
Definitely. So while we've talked a lot about e-commerce, nobody's saying that offline is going away anywhere. I think offline will continue to be a large part of the business. But I think one change that has happened is, and because of this, I think even the large D2C brands, the likes of Mama, Sugar Cosmetics, which are large digital first brands, have realized that they have to have offline presence as well to be able to have a reach. But because these large offline brands, also like the likes of Marico, Imami, have seen the D2C brand, we are seeing some positive effects of that in the B2B supply chain as well. So a lot of distributors are now getting digital enabled. They're saying today, like 2 years ago, the distributors used to call up for like smaller brands. They used to call up and place orders. But today they are saying, can I have a storefront to place an order? The brand is saying that it will make the transaction fairly seamless. So we are seeing a positive technical adoption even in the B2B supply chain. And the digital first brands are also going offline. So they are also like encouraging distributors to be more digital savvy. So I think the digital adoption is going to be pervasive. Offline will still drive majority, even if e-commerce continues to grow post like things going back to normal. But it will be an interesting mix. Some of the stores which are not performing will get converted into a logistics hub because they are able to cater to a catchment. But the large ones will continue to drive in customers because the touch and feel is important for customers in many categories, like home decor, etc. They will continue, and even in fashion as well. So they will continue to have a mix. But I think earlier that mix was very small, where offline stores were predominantly used for the touch and feel and offline sales. But I think those lines are blurring. And brands are realizing that multiple models have to exist, and they have seen the power of innovation in the last 2 years. And I think they have opened their eyes to the multiple models coexisting for different models.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hussein, from your point of view, how's the network involved, and how challenging is it becoming, or is it starting to resolve itself? Obviously, do you have to pick from, from the brand, from distributor, from the retailer? How's it evolving for you?
Look, not a major change here still in this region. Most of the pickups are being done from the warehouses of those e-commerce companies. But we've seen a trend in the region, especially in Saudi, for example, when it comes to collection from stores. Many, especially the perfume brands, the very famous perfume brands, and some retailers of fashion and electronics, they started to request for picking up direct from stores, which is, I think, a very good enabler to provide a quicker delivery here rather than going into maybe a longer fulfillment cycle. So this is interesting, and that's why we started to sell this service in Fetcher today to really lead in this area, because it's going to really grow and flourish more and more, I believe. Collection from stores is going to be much more popular in the coming years.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot over the past kind of 30 minutes or 25 minutes on the changes, right? I think everybody needs to understand, what's happening in the marketplace from experts like you three. But what are the opportunities that and the results that have come out of it? Hussein, I'll stick with you if I may. And looking at how really the benchmark is set quite high now. For any brand that's looking to enter the market. We talked about technology and digital investment that's needed. So what has come, what's the upside from this, from all of these changes?
Naturally, if you're coming with a product which is not unique, you're not going to really have a quick scalability, and you may fail. Coming up with something really unique, a product that maybe solves an issue or provides something different experience. I think this is today the number one vitamin for any product to enter a market. Everything else is really an accessory between the social channels that which is a must, between having reliable delivery partners, between having proper technology for integration, between having the right technology to keep the clients updated about the status of their orders, between providing a proper return service. Again, reverse logistics, all those are important as a combination, and they're very much easily doable today. One delivery partner can give you most of these things, even the marketing part, they can help you. But it depends on what are you trying to sell here, and is your product really that unique to get that traction from day one or no? This is the question.
So yeah, so it's about being different, especially with your product offering, not bringing out the same product and trying to market to the same consumer.
Exactly.
So Rabi, please, from your point of view.
I think we're going to end up seeing a larger shift towards marketing and consumer relationship building through all of this. I think what's happened is that transactions have now become so passé because everyone is trying to find different and faster ways of getting products to you. I think it is really going to be a struggle. And like Hussein said, a brand is going to have to work many times harder to keep their customers with them. And you mentioned in the beginning as well, loyalty is something that kind of got thrown out of the window when the pandemic started. I think people are going to have to really work hard at keeping their customers within the fray of the brand and find something that differentiates them, not just from a communications perspective, but from, like Hussein said, the actual fact of what is it that you're delivering. I think the advantage of that, though, is that you don't have to focus only on the product, because there are so many things that you could differentiate yourselves on. It could be additions that you do to your product. It could be how you affect their lifestyle. It could just be as simple as service. One of the questions on the panel has been about how after-sales service is not always up to the mark. And these are small areas when you look at it from the outside, but when you start delivering on them, they can really be important factors to keep customers to you. So I think marketing and brand building are going to become even larger than they have in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to ask a small kind of follow-up question, which you've reiterated, Sarabi, is around how you communicate with your customers, and has that, whether it's storytelling, whether it's personalization, whether it's one-to-one, like we said, after sales, etc., has that just increased significantly over the past 12 months, or is it in line with what it was pre-pandemic?
It's increased, and I think it's changed form. Everyone is much more focused, and we as a team have become much more focused on actually storytelling, because it's not, people aren't spending time where you were showcasing your product earlier, and you're not going to have the same opportunities to tell them that story, because there's so many brands advertising. I mean, Facebook, ROAS has fallen significantly even, and it goes month up, month down. You can't really predict it, but storytelling, building a relationship, telling them something that's not just a product benefit, I think has become very, very important for us. But we have been trying very hard on things like social commerce. So just making sure that if the consumer is now seeing digital as an entire landscape. Earlier, we used to, in the marketing models, look at it as a place for discovery and research. It's not just that. You actually have to handhold them from discovery and research all the way to final purchase. And if you don't do that successfully, you're going to have very, very big leaky buckets. So.
Understood. Kapil, over to you. Obviously, all of these investments, all of these improvements across the board are obviously creating a less friction for our consumer, which is ultimately what we want to achieve, or what brands and retailers want to achieve. How have you seen this develop from your point of view? You work with thousands and thousands of brands. Kapil, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was saying that definitely, I think I agree with Surabhi that the marketing and communication connect with the customer is important. And even post-purchase experience has become very important now to build that connect and communication with the customer. So whatever promise you've built up for making the purchase, you have to live up to that expectation. You can't be sending, for example, the wrong product or at a later time, and returns has to be very seamless. So all of those things also have to be taken care of. And the bar is definitely higher in terms of logistics, in terms of how you engage with the customer. When they reach out to your customer care, are you able to handle those queries seamlessly or not? So all of these are parts of experience that you have to kind of take care of. And the brands have to realize that customer has always been omnichannel, was always using online to do research and experiment, and is now buying as well. So customer is demanding, and now brands have realized that they have to become omnichannel as well.
Understood. Hussein, we've talked a lot about, you touched on some of the pitfalls. You talked about having a new product category, and if you wanted to enter the market, can you maybe give us some common mistakes or challenges for brands when entering the market? What's essential? Is it finding the right partner? Is it having a USP? What are some of the common mistakes that people can look out for to avoid?
Yeah, I can write a book about this, but I'll give you a couple of points here. One of the points is entering the market in a cheap way, which means just coming with a product and just giving freebies and discounts from day one, which really kill the value of your product. That's always a wrong step. Secondly, even when you want to choose your delivery partners, and when you have a cash requirement, many companies go and choose the cheapest, which is very bad. Because cash on delivery and the process of delivering a shipment and handling the cash and then the reconciliation and everything is not an easy job, trust me. So there's a high cost on this. Companies go for the cheapest just to save money, and then they end up by a horrible customer experience, and they will not have returning clients anymore. Clients will go from day one, which is affecting the business. We've seen this a lot. Also, sometimes companies, believe it or not, but keep it in this room, they run away with the cash. They handle for you a cash on delivery, and then the next day, when you want to reconcile, your cash is gone. So that's a very, very important point, which we always say. If you want to work with companies, especially with COD, cash on delivery, choose the big ones, the well set up ones, so that you can protect your cash. And the experience and the appearance of the delivery couriers matters a lot, because they are representing your brand here. That's why it's good to choose. It's not a matter of the size of the company. It's a matter of the appearance and really the service commitment and how much they're well established, so that this one extra dirham that you pay is going to get you 5 dirhams of extra sales in the future.
Yeah, understood. Kapil, from your point of view, how important is it to understand the consumer?
That's for me, right, Gary?
Yes, please.
So definitely, like I said, the consumer preferences are important both in the pre-purchase journey as well as in the post-purchase journey. And you have to work with multiple vendors now to be able to achieve that vision. And as Hussein mentioned, that you have to choose the right partners to be able to ensure that you have a sustainable journey yourselves to be able to understand the consumer. So you have to have good social listening skills in terms of tools. You have to have good checkout experience for them, and as well as a post-purchase. So working with your consumers, I think that's one fundamental shift, positive shift that has happened, where both small and large brands are realizing the power of consumer, the power of data, and how they can leverage it for their benefit to be able to get better products, get better communication, and get better distribution to the consumers.
Understood. Could I continue with you, Kapil, if I may? And we've talked about new business model. We talked about different channels, etc., direct to consumer, B2B commerce. Can you see that with your clients and your customer base that retailers and brands are adding new options to their product offering? For example, auto replenishment, personalized shopping, depending on cosmetics, fashion, etc., subscription model bases, etc. They're looking to appeal to everybody. Is that something that you've seen, and what kind of growth have you seen in that category?
Definitely, we are seeing newer models of engagement, subscription commerce. We are seeing some interesting. So we're working with a brand called Nuva into female hygiene space, and they have subscription boxes. Sugar Cosmetics, another brand that we're working with. So they have seen this model now picking up for regular usage. There are definitely personalized shopping is sort of now a hygiene feature which anyone has to kind of take care of. We are seeing also in product innovations, we are seeing as they're listening to their consumers more now, we are seeing much shorter cycles of product innovation as well. And we are seeing somebody, let's say a cosmetics player, is getting into elite spaces. We have seen vertical e-commerce players, for example, Nykaa, which is a big cosmetics player, launching into fashion 3 years ago. So we are seeing some horizontal plays as well from vertical players. Somebody like a Mamaearth now getting into newer brands and building a house of brand strategies. We are seeing innovation on that front as well. So both in terms of newer models and engaging with the customer, as well as product innovations and much shorter cycles in that to be able to launch new categories.
Brilliant. And Surabhi, what digital trends do you think will continue to evolve over the next 18 months? 2 years, if you had the crystal ball and you could see into the future. And do you think there are any now that are just a bit of a phase that we're going through because the pandemic has forced us into this, and any that will kind of subside a little bit?
I think from the way I see it, online grocery shopping is something that's going to continue. I think a lot of people who hadn't shopped for grocery online were of the opinion that either the fruits and veg you get are not fresh, or they hadn't actually been spoiled by the convenience of having stuff delivered to your door. So I think online e-com for grocery will be a much faster pickup. I think obviously in other categories such as fashion and in perhaps the larger electronics and maybe even automobiles, of course, there is a requirement to have a physical store visit. So I think those things will pick back up to earlier levels, if not higher. In terms of consumers relating to brands in the online space, I think the way that they're able to live with or see and react to marketing content these days, they have a very high level of patience today, which I think is because they're actually looking to discover options for shopping online. But I think as soon as we return back to normal, people are going to want even more stuff that is just engagement, entertainment. Tell me something funny, make me laugh. Don't tell me a sales story. So I think we'll go back to that, but with a very high level of I think impatience for brand stories. So I think that's something that it's right now I see the fact that your ads are working online is probably short-lived. And we saw that from first wave to second wave. I mean, in the first wave, we were doing 9x ROAS. I had never seen numbers like that. And I was through the roof, I was like, that's it. I'm going to become a millionaire now. And then now we're like at 0.8 and the same performance guy is like, I can't do anything because no one's buying anymore. So I think that is perhaps something that's going to get harder as we progress.
Understood. Hussein, I would like to ask about there'll be a lot of people tuning in thinking about the opportunities within the UAE, right? We know that UAE has #1 brand penetration in the world, above London, New York, USA, wherever it may be. What are the opportunities? Obviously, tread carefully. We know that that's some advice from you. But are there still opportunities for new brands to enter the market?
100%. I think the UAE is very well positioned. I call usually the UAE the capital of the world. This is my personal saying here. UAE and Dubai, it's a gateway to most other regions, and entering the market with a new brand is very attractive because what the country provides is very great facilities here. And when you talk about facilities, I'm talking about all types of infrastructures, be it the communications infrastructure, be it the transportation, logistics, everything you really need is facilitated in the UAE. I believe, yes, I fully always advise businesses to come and set up here, because from here they can literally reach every single other point in the world while enjoying those facilities and benefits that the government provides them. And of course, these can be counted in hundreds.
And Kapil, with your customer base, is the UAE still an important market to break into?
Definitely, we do have customers in Middle East as well, but the Indian brands are definitely exploring UAE as a market. So cross-border is an inquiry that we are getting a lot now, and because now I think the logistics and customs being taken care of, and there are many players who are solving for that already, I think it is becoming increasingly attractive. So it is definitely a question that comes to us very often these days.
Fantastic. And Surabi, how soon can we see Happy Jars in the UAE?
I'm going to be talking to Hussein and Kapil after this.
Okay, brilliant. There we go.
It's a market we've considered, I mean, for us, honestly, as peanut butter, if you just look at that one category, India is the smallest market in the world to sell it. So we've chosen the hardest market and the smallest place to sell. So I'm just waiting to get out internationally, for sure.
My house will be the #1 market for you, for sure, with the children. Look, it seems like a great place to kind of, a great time to wrap up our kind of formulated questions in our discussion. I know that we do have questions that have already come in. I'm going to kind of kick off with one of them that's coming now, and then have a look at the Q&A box and go from there. So you will have to bear with me while I have a quick look through. But we've had a question that's come in and asked about customer engagement, and how it's becoming increasingly important, especially in the dawn of D2C, dark kitchens, dark stores, and if that's the future of commerce, how important is customer engagement. So is there anybody that wants to just kind of put the hand up to that? Otherwise, I'll go straight to Hussein.
Well, I'm not sure if I understood the question. Is it the engagement between the brand and the customer directly? Look, yes, I believe when the brand talks, everybody listens, which means today the mother brands, they have to directly engage with customers and consumers, especially on social media. Believe me, this makes a very big difference, and it creates the loyalty as well. When a customer goes on any social channel and engages with the brand, whether it's an inquiry, it's an appreciation, it's a complaint, when the brand engages in a very proper manner, quickly and in a empathetic way, I think this brings in a lot of loyalty. We've seen this a lot today. People prefer to buy product A because they know that if they have an issue or if they reach that brand on social channels, they get immediate support and they get what they want. Although they prefer product B, but for them, this is a priority here.
For sure. Thank you very much for that. Surabi or Kapil, is there anything to add?
So we have seen dark stores definitely in FMCG, in the large majors like the likes of ITC, Marico. They are setting up dark stores, and even e-commerce retailers, because hyperlocal fulfillment we had seen in the first wave of the pandemic, where the supply chains, long haul supply chains were disrupted. Hyperlocal came to the rescue. The local kiranas came to the rescue, and the brands have realized the power. So customer engagement from that perspective to do hyperlocal fulfillment has become very, very critical. And actually it is a win-win, right? Customer is able to get products in a much shorter time frame, and brands are able to engage much better with the customers as well. We are seeing that more in the fashion and the FMCG sector. We are hopeful that other sectors will also start picking this up. For example, pharma, we are seeing hyper-local deliveries happen through e-commerce retailers. We haven't seen that much being picked up from the brands, but we are hopeful with the success that we've seen in the other two sectors. I think the other natural sectors like home decor, pharma, etc., will also start picking up, where the brands will become more more open to trying out these new models.
Thank you for that. Surabhi, we have a question here, and it's kind of asking about premium products, but I think it could relate to you, because it looks at how can you recreate the retail experience of in-store, obviously your product on the shelves, as opposed to the online experience. And I think you touched upon this earlier, where in-store, if your branding looks good and you have the right kind of position within the store, it stands out and the consumer is walking past. How do you do that online? How does that come across?
I think if you look at it purely from a consumer lens and you just try and recreate all those steps, the channel doesn't matter. The customer doesn't mind that they're shopping online versus in retail. So in our case, for example, when we designed our stores for retail, our pack fronts, we actually made it very, very clean. We used very colorful jars, and it allowed us to grab attention from afar. You couldn't go into a store, look for nut butter, anything, even in the jams and spreads category, you wouldn't not see Happy Jars. When it came to online, the way that we replicated that was to have imagery that was so stunning that even if you were scrolling past your Instagram feed, the one thing you would do is pause the thumb, even if it's just for a second. We may not make a purchase decision at that point in time, but you won't not notice it. So we tried to recreate the same kind of stop the thumb movement as opposed to stop the eyeball in a store. Things for us in product, of course, CG imagery, having professional photographer shoot and things like that were extremely important. And those were actually one of the first things that we invested a lot on when we were starting our journey. In terms of premium brands, I think building your story online is harder to do, because a lot of it is to do with, I actually want, even as a food brand, someone when they hold the jar and they touch the fact that the jar feels a certain way, has a certain shape. How do you recreate that online? It is harder, but I think video is the way to go. And we've been seeing that across, there's absolutely no limit to what video can help you to do, whether it's textures or look and feel or fits of clothes, etc. And also having copy that people can relate to. So in terms of online, if you literally just look at every sentence you write and ask yourself, if a customer actually made the effort to read this, would it convince them or not to buy the product? That really helps. Very often we forget that we're trying to get a customer to make a decision. We just put what we think they need to know. But if you stop and ask from their perspective, it helps.
Understood. So from that, I'm taking you need to understand who else is in that same space with you and stand out from the crowd. But equally, back to something Hussein said, investment. You have to invest in professional services. Hussein, over to you, and we're going to talk about the A word, Amazon. We've had somebody said e-commerce is a thriving business and very well poised to grow in the region. That being said, how can a startup e-commerce company penetrate in a market where Noon and Amazon and has a better presence and better penetration?
Look, better presence and better penetration because of the size of those companies and the histories of those companies. But also, you need to look what Amazon and Noon are doing different than others as well. Forget about the size and the brand and the big name, because today I don't see loyalty anymore for consumers that pushes them to go into Amazon. They want to find the right product. Whether they find it on Amazon or anywhere else, they will buy it. I think product availability is very important here. Stock accuracy is very important, as I said. Pricing is important. Believe it or not, some people buy from a shop and not from the other online if they can save maybe $10 or 10 dirhams. Taking into consideration all those, plus, of course, the return policy. The return policy, and it's very tough, by the way, to compete with Amazon. I can tell you from now, nobody ever in the world can compete with Amazon when it comes to returning a product or a damaged product, because without any questions, you're compensated. If you are a small business, it's better to invest in such things rather than to go very aggressive on maybe marketing through certain unnecessary channels. Allow me to say this: today, marketing is not just a big, a big post or a big poster on the highway. It's much more of the experience that they provide. I think the experience that they provide today and the good pricing and the good product is all what you need to not. I don't want you to compete with Amazon. Maybe you need to complement the options that consumers have while having a third player next to them, irrespective of your size, and you can do it easily.
Thank you very much for that, Kapil. There's a question here which I think you might be able to help out on, which is
sorry, Gary, I just wanted to add one point to what
yes, please, yes,
said.
absolutely.
So we are actually definitely, I think the marketplaces are catering to the majority of the volumes. But what we're interestingly seeing is that the websites are growing 3 times that of the marketplaces, the volumes, at least in India, that's what we're seeing. And we have seen large D2C brands being set up, which do not have a major presence on marketplaces. So people have proven that you can compete and build a large brand. It is definitely hard, but you have to benchmark, and as Hussein rightly said, benchmark against the experiences that these marketplaces offer. And you can do it in a sustainable way as well. I think it's been proven. It's just that you have to have courage and obviously a bit of luck to be able to succeed. But I think it's definitely a way forward for a lot of upcoming entrepreneurs as well as large offline brands as well.
Absolutely. So a question's come in. We'd like to ask the panel when it comes to your customers' behaviors. Kapil, I'd like to ask you the question then, and Surabhi as well. Have you experienced issues with customer acquisitions and retentions? And what are your predictions in the next few years in this area in terms of marketing strategy and trends, etc.? So it looks like we're talking about gaining new customers and retaining them, but also what's the strategy for the next few years?
Oh, yes, it's absolutely very hard. I think Surabhi made that point in the beginning. It's very easy to sell today, but to be able to acquire and retain, more importantly, retain a customer is very, very hard today. You are competing with thousands of brands, which wasn't the case, let's say 5 years ago, right? You could take the customers probably for granted as well as 10 years ago, but not anymore. They are so much spoiled for choices globally now, both in emerging and developed economies. Customer acquisition is definitely hard, so you have to invest a lot, and more important, it's equally important to be able to retain the customer. See, once you're, let's say, spending X amount to acquire a customer, if you have repeat purchases happening for them, your economics as a brand improves significantly. So you have to ensure that whatever promises you have sort of set up the expectations, you are able to deliver on that. So as much as it is hard to acquire a customer, it is even harder to retain a customer, especially in this competitive world. I think in 3 years down the line, it is going to be harder, and many newer models will emerge. So today it's, let's say, Facebook, Instagram, etc., driving sales. I think how do you attract or Google SEO traffic being driven to your brand's website? How do you kind of optimize for that? And there are going to be newer models that will emerge, and how quickly can you adapt to these models is what will be the key to be able to ensure customer acquisition and retention.
Sure. Thank you. And Surabhi, from your point of view?
I think what I've also noticed is that I agree completely with what Kapil has said. And I think the other thing that perhaps we could use as brands, and this is something we're constantly asking ourselves, because like I was mentioning Facebook ROAS, like acquisition has gone through the roof. It's very, very expensive to do. But retention perhaps is even more expensive because you're also spending on the same channels with remarketing, retargeting, all of that. So, but I think one thing that's happened, which is a good thing, is that consumers have become a lot more informal in their relationships with brands and vice versa. So when you're talking to a brand, or when someone talks to Happy Jars, they don't only talk to Happy Jars, they know they're talking to either Surabhi or Vikram or Prerna from the team, because we've put ourselves out there. And I think that's one of the perhaps biggest game changers that will happen as we go forward, because you're not just a box that's selling a thing. If you have a relationship with that company, that's the company you will go back to. So a customer who can message me on WhatsApp and say, I want this delivered, but I want you to send it only on Thursday and deliver at this point in time. If I can do that, I'm guaranteed the business. It's not really about, and like I mentioned, that's where the relationship angle comes in more than just a transaction. So I think it's definitely harder, but there are a couple of levers still left in marketing playbooks that we could use.
Thank you very much for that. Hussein, there's a question that's come in asking, considering the number of companies that are entering the e-commerce market, do you see an increased consolidation to make logistics costs time effective? I think that's the question there.
Indeed, yes. I think consolidation is really required here. to optimize the delivery cost. But the problem is, unfortunately, and what I've been noticing across my 20 years experience, is the people who are being put on the logistics seats are not very much experienced to really understand that benefit. They don't really initiate such things. They don't take it in a scientific manner. It's just using 3 or 4 or 5 players. Although I always recommend, if you have one trusted player, it's very safe to put all your eggs in one basket as long as that player is reliable, because the more you give them volumes, the more your cost per delivery is going to go down with them, and you will become, or they will give you that loyalty. Because going back to retention of clients, even in our industry, I think maintaining clients is very difficult, but bringing in loyalty programs to them with a good service and being flexible and available, as Surabi said, as executive management to those clients, we can retain them forever. So consolidation is very important, but again, you need the right brains behind the logistics to understand the value of consolidating.
Thank you. I think Faisal has joined, which means I'm getting pulled off because we're out of time. We do still have more questions coming in, and I've seen that some LinkedIn requests have popped up. So for the people that still join, please connect with Surabi, Hussein, myself, Kapil, deVere, Faisal, and the rest of the team, and we do our best to answer the questions for you. From myself personally, I'd like to thank Dubai Chamber for inviting me to moderate this session. It's been a great discussion. Thank you to the panelists for joining me and making the conversation flow so easily. I appreciate it. And Faisal?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your great insights and participation. And thank you for all the attendees for joining us today. And before we end today's session, we want just to also highlight and bring to context the series of those 3 webinars that we have started last month. They all fall into the bigger picture of Dubai Tech Tour, which we have launched the application for last month, Dubai Tech Tour, specifically for India scale-ups in retail technologies who are interested to discover more about Dubai market. The applications are open until 6th of August. Please check it out and apply if you are interested. My team will add the link on the chat here. And to give you a perspective, basically the selected scale-ups who will join the tour will get an opportunity to be part of the digital online tour to discover more business opportunities that lies there in Dubai, and to better understand the business landscape of retail and e-commerce in Dubai. So we look forward to having those applications come in. And please note that after we end the session today, you will be redirected from Zoom to a survey to get from you how the experience of the webinar was. It will be insightful and great for us so that we can improve the customer experience on such webinars. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward seeing you in the next webinar next month.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.